Welcome to Byte Sized L&D, your quick, no-nonsense update on the latest in workplace learning. Today, we're tackling the disconnect between recent graduates and workplace expectations and exploring how comprehensive onboarding can bridge the gap. All right, let's get straight into it.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Byte Sized L&D, where we break down the latest trends and challenges in learning and development. I'm your host, Donna, and as always, I'm joined by my insightful co-host, DStrategies.
Yakov Lasker here, ready to dive into today's hot topic. And trust me, this one's generating quite a bit of buzz in the L&D world.
Lay it on me, Yakov. What are we unpacking today?
We're tackling something that's causing headaches for HR departments and L&D professionals everywhere. The growing disconnect between recent graduates and workplace expectations. A recent survey found that over half of hiring managers believe recent graduates are unprepared for the workforce and difficult to manage. Even more concerning, about 1 in 6 managers say they're reluctant to hire recent grads at all.
Wow, those are some sobering statistics. It sounds like we're dealing with a serious skills gap here. What's driving this perception?
The data paints an interesting picture. Among hiring managers who reported issues with recent graduates, nearly half cited a lack of motivation or initiative as the top problem. About 39% mentioned a lack of professionalism, another 39% pointed to excessive phone use, and 38% highlighted poor time management. And here's the kicker, 8 in 10 managers reported that a recent college graduate didn't work out at their company in the past year.
That's alarming. Are we really seeing that many new hires failing to meet expectations? What's happening between graduation and that first job?
There seems to be a fundamental disconnect. As one career coach put it, colleges don't teach students how to behave in the workplace, and there is a lack of transitional support from both universities and employers. Most students graduate with little exposure to professional environments, so they're often learning basic workplace norms for the first time when they start their jobs.
Right. And that leads me to think about our role as L&D professionals. It sounds like we're inheriting a problem that begins well before these graduates walk through our doors. But still, we need practical solutions. What are managers doing about this?
Well, that's where it gets interesting for our listeners. About 2/3 of managers say they've changed their management style to accommodate Gen Z workers, and 75% report that this younger generation requires more time and resources than previous ones.
Makes sense. I've noticed this shift myself. The traditional sink or swim approach just doesn't work with this generation.
Exactly, and this is where L&D can make a real difference. The pandemic definitely played a role here. Many of these recent graduates missed out on internships and in-person work experiences that traditionally helped develop those soft skills we all take for granted.
The infamous COVID cohort. I've heard some managers use that term, though I don't love the label. These graduates were studying remotely, missing out on those natural social interactions that help develop communication skills and professional norms. It's not entirely their fault.
No, it's not. And the data supports that. According to one education advisor, Gen Z employees come in with stronger technical skills than previous generations, but may lack the practical experiences gained through traditional work environments. So they've got skills, just maybe not the ones we're used to prioritizing.
This reminds me of a conversation I had with our HR director last week. She mentioned that we need to meet them where they are, rather than expecting them to automatically fit into our established workplace culture. But that's easier said than done.
It absolutely is, and there's some tension here too. The survey found that half of managers said their younger workers cause friction among other generations in the workplace. So as L&D professionals, we're not just training the new employees, we're having to mediate these generational differences too.
Talk about being caught in the middle. So what should we be doing differently? What's working for organizations that are successfully integrating these recent graduates?
Great question. The research suggests a few key strategies. First, we need to completely rethink onboarding. One CEO mentioned that proper onboarding should take 12 to 18 months, not the typical 2 weeks of orientation followed by good luck.
Wait, 12 to 18 months? That's a significant investment.
It is. But consider this. That same CEO noted that after 12 months, companies start to break even on that investment. And by 18 months, they're seeing real returns. The onboarding process should be thorough and include shadowing opportunities, specific training on both hard and soft skills, and regular check-ins.
That makes sense. I imagine clear structure and expectations are crucial here.
Absolutely. One CPO mentioned that while older generations understood they were at the bottom of the pyramid when starting out, they also had clarity about why their job was important. Gen Z needs that same clarity, but with more guidance on how their specific role contributes to the bigger picture.
Right, because from what I've read about Gen Z, purpose is hugely important to them. They want their work to mean something.
Exactly. According to Deloitte's 2024 survey, 86% of Gen Z workers said having a sense of purpose is important to their overall job satisfaction and well-being. And 75% said an organization's community engagement and societal impact is a major factor when considering an employer.
So it's not just about the paycheck, though I imagine that's still important, especially given the economic pressures on this generation. But they want meaning alongside the money.
Right on. And this is where companies can actually leverage Gen Z's values. For example, 62% of Gen Z workers reported feeling anxious about climate change, and many are willing to change jobs to better align with their environmental values. Companies that showcase their sustainability efforts and community engagement might have an easier time attracting and retaining these workers.
I think there's an opportunity here for L&D to create programs that connect individual roles to broader company missions and values. Something like your role in our sustainability journey, or workshops that help employees see the impact of their work beyond their department.
I love that idea. And it ties into another recommendation from the experts: fostering a sense of belonging. Volunteer opportunities through work can help Gen Z employees feel connected to something larger, while also building those interpersonal skills that might be underdeveloped.
Makes total sense. What about the notorious phone issue? That came up in the statistics you mentioned earlier. 87% of managers reported that recent graduates are often or sometimes on their phones during work hours. How do we address that without coming across as the grumpy, get off my lawn older generation?
That's a delicate balance, isn't it? One approach is to set clear expectations, but also recognize that these digital natives might have different relationships with technology. Some companies are implementing focused work periods where phones are put away, balanced with breaks where phone use is acceptable.
I've also seen some organizations successfully channel that digital fluency into productive avenues, like having newer employees manage social media, create internal digital content, or lead reverse mentoring sessions where they teach older employees about emerging tech trends.
That's brilliant. Turn what could be seen as a weakness into a strength. And speaking of strengths, regular surveys and check-ins seem to be crucial for helping Gen Z succeed. One CEO emphasized the importance of creating an environment where younger workers feel comfortable saying, "I'm struggling and need your help."
That vulnerability piece is so important. I remember my early career days when asking for help felt like admitting failure. We need to actively work against that perception.
Absolutely. And interestingly, the survey data shows that Gen Z has different expectations around mental health support too. They want employers who ensure good work-life balance and provide support for psychological struggles, even if those struggles originate outside the workplace.
This is where I think L&D intersects with broader company culture. We can develop all the training programs in the world, but if the culture punishes vulnerability or glorifies burnout, we're fighting an uphill battle.
You've hit on something important there. The managers in this survey reported experiencing frustration, 51%, stress, 44%, and even burnout, 16% from managing Gen Z employees. If managers are burning out, they can't effectively support their teams. Wasanabuko.
So perhaps some of our L&D efforts should focus on the managers themselves, giving them tools to adapt their management style without sacrificing their own well-being.
That's an excellent point. In fact, 44% of managers reported providing more frequent feedback to Gen Z employees. That's a significant change in communication style that requires skill and energy.
and patience. But seriously, what qualities are managers actually looking for when they do hire recent graduates? Are there specific skills or attributes that make them more likely to take a chance on a young candidate?
According to the survey, managers most value initiative, a positive attitude, a strong work ethic, adaptability, openness to feedback, punctuality, and strong interpersonal skills. Interestingly, things like avoiding political talk or having a polished social media presence weren't major factors in hiring decisions.
That's good to know. We can design our programs to emphasize those high-value attributes. And really, many of those qualities have always been important in the workplace. They're not specific to Gen Z.
True. The basics of professionalism haven't changed, but the context has. One way to look at this is that Gen Z isn't necessarily less capable. They just had fewer opportunities to develop these skills before entering the workforce. Partly due to the pandemic,
Which brings us back to our role as L&D professionals. We need to fill that gap with intentional, structured development opportunities, and maybe recognize that this generation brings unique strengths too, like technical savvy, environmental consciousness, and a desire for purpose-driven work.
exactly, it's not all doom and gloom. This generation has incredible potential, if we can meet them halfway. And the companies that figure this out first will have a competitive advantage in attracting and retaining top talent.
So to summarize what we've learned today, recent graduates face significant challenges transitioning to the workplace, but with the right support systems, they can thrive. Comprehensive onboarding, clear expectations, regular feedback, purpose-driven work, and mental health support all make a difference.
And for our listeners in L&D, the key takeaway is that we need to rethink our traditional approaches. We're not just training on technical skills. We're helping bridge a fundamental gap in workplace readiness while also mediating between different generational expectations.
What a challenge, but also what an opportunity. I'd love to hear from our listeners about how they're addressing these issues in their organizations. What's working? What's not? How are you redesigning your L&D programs to meet the needs of today's graduates?
Yes, please share your experiences. You can reach us through our website or social media. And remember, we're all learning together how to adapt to these changing workforce dynamics.
Well said, Yakov. Thanks for breaking down this fascinating topic today. And thanks to all our listeners for tuning in to Byte Sized L&D. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep adapting.
Catch you on the next episode. That's a wrap for today's podcast, where we explored the gap between graduates and workplace expectations, emphasizing the importance of effective onboarding and embracing Gen Z's strengths. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends and colleagues, so they can also stay updated on the latest news and gain powerful insights. Stay tuned for more updates.